Hi, Janet. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good. Hi, baby. How did you get so dirty already? I'm on your You're fine. I'm just telling you it's functioning, and so they can hear you.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Janet Manship.
Hi, Janet. I'm Rick Jacobs.
Nice to meet you via Zoom.
Yeah. It's actually nice to be able to sit outside, though, isn't it?
It is. Yes, I'm getting a little bit used to this with my office meetings, that I'm going to get spoiled here. on this BZA meeting.
Hey, Rick, how are you?
I'm good, Adam. How about yourself?
Good, real good, thanks.
Good.
Looks like you guys got a nice setup outside, both of you. Nice,
Oh, yeah.
nice and relaxing.
Sitting out there on my front porch
At
or
least,
my side porch, just relaxing.
Good.
and at least we finally have weather to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Try do something here.
Adam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Ken.
Oh, good. Always good to see your smiling face. Yeah, so these Zoom meetings are pretty handy.
They are. I mean, given the situation we're in, I'm thankful that we're able, the governor has allowed us to use this as a mechanism for now. Otherwise, if we weren't able to meet in public, it would have really created a backlog, I think, for a lot of different things.
But well, yeah, I'm here at soccer practice. I run a youth league, but so I'm sitting in the car. Somebody else is taking over.
Hey, Adam.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Good. Apparently my link worked just fine. It showed different on my, I always get the same text or email from you. And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
that don't look right.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, me too. I picked up at the end of your conversation. You were talking about happy that Zoom where it worked well for me. I was already 2 months behind. It's like, oh no.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, Mark. Is that a
How are you
beer?
guys? Yeah.
Was that a beer you're drinking, Adam?
No, it's water.
Oh, okay. It looked like it was a dark colored bottle. I didn't want to say anything, but I went ahead and said it anyway. Yep, there's Mark, smiling as ever.
I'm just going to be quiet.
Am I going to need to say anything tonight, Adam?
Not unless you want to. I mean, certainly anybody from your development team would have the opportunity to speak, but I would give the presentation first.
Okay.
If there's anything
Probably
I
not.
missed or stated incorrectly, feel free to correct me afterwards.
So Adam, as we get ready to get started, how long have people been using this Zoom?
Through about all of April. So it's been basically after we closed town hall to the public. So April
I
and
mean-
now all of May.
Yeah, is this Zoom, is this a recent thing, or has it been around for a couple of years?
I think it's been around for a little while. I mean, I can't speak for others. I had only used it maybe once or twice before April. But now, like everybody else in America, becoming very familiar with it.
Well, as a lot of things with the internet, sometimes I wonder, well, who's paying for this? Who pays for Zoom? Do you have to pay a fee or something?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
They have a free version that gives you a limited amount of time, and then you pay for a subscription.
Okay, I see.
A very good business model they have. Hi, everybody. Lacey Miller. How are we doing on attendance?
Can you go through and tell me who might be missing right at the moment? I'm looking. I see Earl, Amanda, Rick. Who else is here? I'm not seeing. Oh, here we go. Let me look. Brad, Nick, Earl, Rick. Who are we missing, Lacey?
Let's see.
So Zane will not be on.
One,
So
two, three.
I think
Yeah.
we've got everybody, right?
Yes.
Oh,
It looks like
it's Lacey, Earl, Amanda, and Rick. Is that it? Great.
okay. So why don't we go ahead and call the meeting to order? It's at 6:33. This is the BZA, and we have some agenda items to start today. And Adam, it's okay if you start with the minutes?
Sure.
All right, so we can consider approval of the minutes from our last meeting if any of our BZA members have a motion to do that.
I move to approve the April 30th minutes of the last BZA meeting.
Okay, it's been moved. Any second?
I second.
Thanks, Earl. There's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? All right, minutes pass. Okay, Adam, can I send it over to you? Take us to our agenda items for this evening.
All right. What do we have as the first public hearing item on the agenda?
Hang on, Adam, I'm gonna switch over my audio. Just a second, I'm switching my
Yeah.
audio. I'm getting a little bit of.
We have Janet on for the first.
All right. So Lacey, let me know when you're ready and we'll get started with the 210 East Mill.
Go right ahead. I'm just joining the other audio.
All right. All right. So for the record, I'm Adam Zaklikowski, the Planning and Building Director for the town. The first item before you tonight is case 03 VAR 2020, and it is for 210 East Mill Street. So this particular project involves a use variance. And this particular property is located on the south side of Mill, across from the Fortville Tire Center. It's currently being used as a single-family residential property. It's a rental. The owner is Margie Manship, and the zoning of the property is residential 3.5, and it is within what's called the Old Town Overlay District in the zoning ordinance. The lot size is about 0.22 acres, and the house itself is about 1,100 square feet. So the applicant, Ms. Manship, is an attorney with a family law practice, and she's currently located in Greenfield. And she'd like to transition her practice to a house in Fortville that's currently owned by her mother. The property, as I said, it's currently zoned R3.5, and this law office would be considered an administrative or professional office. It's a commercial use, and so it's not allowed in that zoning district by right per the zoning ordinance. The property would need to be either rezoned to a commercial zoning, but it is adjacent to residential areas, or a use variance would be sought, the latter being the option sought right now. So the applicant is seeking a use variance to allow law office in a residential zoning district. One quick technical thing here. All right. So here is an aerial photo of the property. Whoop. There we go. I'm going to do one other quick thing here. Everybody would mute their phones. We're getting quite a bit of background noise, just for the time being. All right, thank you. As you can see, the property is on a residential block. There's the Fortville Tire Center across the street. Of course, as many of you know, it's not far from the commercial corridor here in the downtown area. If we look at the oblique aerial photo, this kind of gives you a little bit more of a close-up of what we're looking at here. You can see the historic home, tire center. You've got the water tower across the street. Again, this is a very residential block in this area. And then if we look at the zoning map, you can see that that whole residential block, including the property itself, is zoned R3.5. And there, the area across the street is zoned commercial center, CC. So anything you see here in pink is zoned CC. And then anything in yellow is R3.5. Here are some exhibits that the applicant put together. It shows the front of the property that you see there today. Also is also showing what some potential changes she'd like to make. It would involve repairing the porch and opening up the bottom portion to have some better visibility and better access. There's also a potential of expanding this two-car driveway and maybe a side pad for some additional parking. Could be angled parking. If you look at the rear of the property, you can see pretty residential in nature, but Ms. Manship has talked about removing the shed, leaving the back wall of the garage, and removing the aluminum enclosure, which would leave that back wall of the home and the back door. One of the changes that could occur is installing a rear parking pad off of the alley. And this is where we would anticipate that a ADA handicap accessible space and aisle is located. And the type of pad that she's envisioning is very similar to one that is on the opposite side of the alley. There was a new rehab of a home and new parking pads. So something very similar to what you see below. Of course, this is the view of the house from the front. This is if we're looking to the west. You can see the downtown commercial area and where the post office is. This is the tire center that is directly across the street. So in terms of the staff analysis on this project, since the house is on a residential block, I believe it would be inappropriate to make a permanent change in the zoning to commercial, but allowing for a low impact use such as a law office is acceptable, but use variance is a more appropriate mechanism. So across the street, there's from the car repair shop and near the post office. So it's a quote unquote light commercial use, and it would not be out of the ordinary for this particular area. Anytime we're evaluating a use variance, some of the aspects of the project that we take a look at are what's the impact of noise or lighting. In this particular case, no parking lot lights are needed or intended, and there's no abnormal amounts of noise that would happen. Bear with me 1 second here. Okay, another major aspect, of course, is parking. The Old Town overlay does allow on-street parking to qualify for the parking requirement. And currently there's 2 on-site spaces and 3 street spaces. So there are 5 spaces available today. Now this is what's required for the code for this type of use. You'd have to have 1 per employee and then 1 space per 300 square feet of building. If you have 2 employees, that would put the total that's required at 6. So Ms. Manship intends on widening the 1-car width of the driveway, which is 44 feet long, to a 2-car width. Could be slightly longer if she ends up doing some angled parking off of it. And she does plan on putting a concrete parking pad off the alley in the back. That's where, as I mentioned, the ADA space would be located. We talked about the pad off the driveway in front. The other item to consider is signage. Since the zoning will remain residential, any proposed sign cannot exceed 4 feet tall and 6 square feet. And any sign that's larger than that would require a variance. For remonstrance, we have not received any letters, emails, or phone calls from individuals opposing the project. Now, the typical decision criteria or the test for the variance, as you're familiar with, are these. First one is the general welfare, that if you were to approve it, it wouldn't be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. And yes, this has been met, I believe. The land use location would not be injurious to the general welfare. Hold on 1 second, I'm getting quite a bit of feedback. Okay, it should take care of it for now. All right, second one is the adjacent property, that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. I'd say yes, it's been met. A law office will not cause noise, parking needs are minimal, and the residential character of the home will be maintained. And then the last test is practical difficulty, that the strict application of the terms of this chapter will result in a practical difficulty in the use of the property. I'd say yes, it's met. It would not allow a reasonable use of this kind in this zoning district at this location.
Adam, this is Brad.
Yes.
I would jump. There are actually two other criteria under state law. It also needs to be that the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property involved, and then that approval would not substantially interfere with the comprehensive plan.
For use variances?
Exactly,
Or
yeah.
any
Those
variance?
use variances.
Oh, okay, great. Great, thank you. So in terms of the comprehensive plan would put this at residential. So it's not, again, we're not looking to rezone it. It would just be a use variance. What was the second one, Brad?
Yeah, and I would say that for the substantial interference, that this is directly across the street from other commercial. So, I mean, it wouldn't, to me, be a substantial interference. Then the other is that it's peculiar to the property, which once again, to me, looking at what you were showing, it's near the downtown area and directly across from a tire shop and other commercial uses. It's kind of a peculiarly located piece of property.
Right, I agree. Thank you. That's good. We'll have to make note of that for use variances, make sure we put that in our template. All right, so with that, my recommendation on the variance would be to approve it, but subject to the following conditions. That number one, the approval is valid only for use for professional legal services. That the residential character of the home and property shall be maintained to the practical extent. Number two, an ADA parking space, striped aisle, and sign shall be placed on new pavement located off of the alley. An ADA accessible concrete pathway shall be provided from this location to the building. And then lastly, number three, a single row of additional head-in parking spaces may be provided off of the alley. So if you were so inclined to approve with those variances in your motion, you could keep it simple and say we approve subject to those recommendations, the three recommendations outlined in the staff report. So with that, if you have any questions of me, I'm more than happy to address those. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Any questions from the BZA for Adam?
Yeah, I've got a couple, mainly clarifications more than anything. So on, is this strictly going to be turned into a law office, or is it also going to be a residence as well as a law office?
Only a law office, no residence.
Okay, okay. Let's see. And I'm just curious, I know that we went over the parking spaces and the number of the criteria and all that, but on a typical day or week, how much activity will this law office see? Two clients, 10 clients a week? I mean, I'm just kind of curious. I mean, how much traffic would that generate?
Yeah, I'll defer to Ms. Manship to answer that particular question.
Sorry, I got to mute myself.
We'll have one more, Ms. Manship, wait just another moment. Because I think, are we ready to actually move to we've got some time in our agenda during the BZA, Ms. Manship, for you to be able to kind of share some comments or some clarifications. So is it okay with the BZA if we go to that now? Adam, okay with you?
Yep.
Good, okay. Go right ahead. I think if you want to provide the clarification, Ms. Manship, or if you would like to also share additional details, go right ahead.
Thank you. And Adam, thanks for the presentation. You did a good job. I think you covered the vast majority of the issues or the proposal. Amanda, in order to answer your question, I'm a sole practitioner, so I would probably say, and I haven't looked at numbers for that question, but I would say on a given week, I may have, I don't know, 6 to 7 clients that actually visit the office. Most of what we do is by email, telephone conferences. Now, part of my practice does entail mediations, And so I probably host a mediation in my office, I don't know, maybe 5 times a month. And for those mediations, typically there will be about 4 additional people that participate for those. So, but normally when it's a mediation, it's an all-day event, so it's not cars coming and going. And I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's
It does.
it's pretty limited. It's just me.
Okay, thank you. That did clarify it.
Right. Anything else? We do have time in the agenda if you would like to provide any additional information or details as part of the application.
Unless anybody has any questions, I had 2 clarifications and probably not significant or substantive, but Adam, you referenced the owner of the property being my mother, and actually I married into the Manship family, so it's my mother-in-law that is actually the owner. The intent is subject to this approval. Yeah, that's all right. I'm sure, I feel like she's my mom half the time, but subject to this approval, the idea would be that my husband and I will be actually purchasing that property from her, so we would become the owners of that property.
Okay. Any other clarifications for the time that you've got on the agenda? Okay. We do have an opportunity to ask additional questions, either of Adam or Ms. Manship, but we can open that up now. Anybody from the BZA? Rick, you might be on mute, or might be talking somewhere else. Oh, okay.
There, okay, can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay.
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
One question I would have is what kind of time process are you looking to go through the changes and actually getting into taking customers if this is approved?
Well, obviously, as everyone knows, it's probably somewhat subject to the contractors and getting that completed. My hope is we can do the repair to the outside work by this end of the summer. The inside needs a little bit more work to it, but hopefully we would like to have it completed by the 1st of August and make the transition through the month of August. So officially be up and running full speed by September 1. Again, it may be wishful thinking, but that's my hope.
Okay.
And Rick, just to clarify, keep in mind, I have a current practice that I've had established, so it's a matter of just moving my current office to this location, which again, we'd like to do through the month of August and then operational September 1.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have anybody participating in today's Zoom that would like to provide a remonstrance or objections or any other comments? Okay, the record can reflect that we do not have any. We do have an opportunity for any government officials to provide any commentary as well. So any government officials on the line would like to provide any comments? Okay, seeing that there's none, we can now come back to the BZA to see if there's any additional clarifications or questions that we might have as a group. So BZA members, any other questions? All right, we can entertain a motion. Adam, can you set us clear on exactly the language of the motion? We probably would like to maybe see your contingencies when making a motion. Thank you.
Yep, I'll share the screen here. All right, so these are the 3 suggested conditions for the project.
Okay, thank you, Adam. So staff recommendation on the variance is for an approval. Is there a motion from our BZA members?
Now, I'll go ahead and do that. This is Amanda. So I make a motion to approve the use variance, case number 03 VAR 2020 for 210 East Mill Street, and to include the 3 recommended conditions laid out in the staff report.
Thank you, Amanda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Earl. All right, we are now open up for any other discussion. Discussion from the BZA members. Okay, we can now. We're going to do a verbal vote on this, Adam and Brad, and then we will reinforce it with any paperwork afterwards. Does that sound acceptable still? Is that still working for you guys?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll need to have it in writing afterwards, but that works.
Got it. All right. So all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, motion passes, and we'll get that get all signed up. Thank you, Ms. Manship.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Adam. Sure. Adam, can you take us to our next agenda item?
Sure can. All right, so the next item before you all involves the proposed Moondrops Distillery, and this involves a special exception and a number of development standards variances. So the applicant, Mark Presley, is seeking a special exception, those variances, for a planned 8,200 square foot industrial building for the distillery on a 3-acre undeveloped property at 738 West Broadway. The property was recently rezoned to Industrial Light, IL, and it is within the highway corridor overlay. So it does have some additional design and development standards. This went to the Plan Commission on May 26th for approval of the concept site plan, the concept building elevations, and the concept landscape plan, and they did approve those. But of course, any variances must be approved by your body. Mr. Presley is an Indianapolis entrepreneur. He has a contract to purchase the property from Indy Properties Group, LLC, under management by Jaswinder Singh. He's the current owner. And initially, there would only be a distillery, so the production of grain alcohol. But after an 18-month waiting period, which is required by Indiana law, Moondrops would be able to apply for what's called an artisan distiller's permit from the state, and that would allow for the addition of a tasting room, which would enhance the customer's experience. So before you is the zoning map. You can see it's already been updated, and here is the light blue color for industrial light. There is some commercial neighborhoods, CN zoning, that is to the west and to the east. And there is some undeveloped farmland that's zoned R1.0 in the county, just off to the south behind the property. And if we look here at the aerial photo, you can get a sense of some of the surrounding land uses. You've got the railroad tracks that are, on the north side of the roadway. To the west is more or less a contractor's warehouse. Beyond that is Paul's Garage. It is a automotive repair shop. And then the smaller building directly to the east is an Allstate insurance agency. Again, this is just a clear picture from an oblique aerial. Again, you can see the contractor's warehouse, Paul's Garage, and then the Allstate building over here. So this was the site plan that was approved by the Plan Commission on Tuesday. That underwent a thorough review and analysis by our technical review committee, as well as the Plan Commission themselves, of course. Big takeaway here is you can see that the building is really being placed on the front half of the property. Back half would remain vacant. So the special exception, the zoning ordinance classifies a distillery as a manufacturing facility. So it's technically not allowed what we call by right in that industrial light zoning district, but they do allow a special exception. That would be needed to be granted by you all. And the special exception would also cover the tasting room use, since it really is a common component of alcohol manufacturing today. So typical considerations for a special exception, similar to the last case, parking. In this case, it exceeds the code requirement. There's no issue there. Noise and odor. Certainly with this type of use, there could be some loud noises on occasion and some light odor, but there are no residential homes that are nearby. And then compatibility with the surroundings. There are a couple of contractors' warehouses nearby, auto mechanic, so not seeing any compatibility issues there. So the decision criteria for the zoning ordinance, which is based on state law, is first one is the special exception, is it listed in section 3.2 of the zoning ordinance? In this case, yes, manufacturing is a special exception use in IL zoning. Number two, for the special exception, can it be served with adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities? I'd say yes. Three, that the special exception shall not involve any element or cause any condition that may be dangerous, injurious, or noxious to any other property or persons, and shall comply with the development standards of Article 6 of the zoning ordinance. I'd say yes, that the building will need to meet building codes and fire codes, of course, related to storage and production of any dangerous materials. And then it does comply with the development standards, with the exception of the variances that they'll be seeking here tonight. Number four, the special exception shall be sorted, oriented, and landscaped to produce a harmonious relationship of buildings and grounds to adjacent buildings and properties. I'd say yes. Number five, the special exception shall produce a total visual impression and environment which is consistent with the environment of the neighborhood. I'd say yes. Number six, the special exception shall organize vehicular access and parking to minimize traffic congestion in the neighborhood. I'd say yes, no issues there. And then, does the special exception preserve the purpose of the zoning or ordinance? I would say yes. So simply put, my recommendation on the special exception would be to approve that. Now, moving on to the variances. As I had mentioned at the onset, this particular area falls within, it falls within the highway corridor overlay. And this was something that we carried over from the Hancock County zoning ordinance. The primary purpose of it really is to address commercial big box development and to ensure that the development of any of those types of uses would be consistent with what you might see in other suburban communities, and using really the latest trends with materials, building articulation, things of that nature. So, but of course, with a use like this, it doesn't fit nice and neatly with the codes. So, breaking it down for each of the variances that they're looking for, the first one has to do with building display windows. Our zoning ordinance says that if you have that you have to have display windows, and that all facade walls shall have display windows, faux windows, or decorative windows for no less than 60% of the facade's horizontal length along all pedestrian walkways. Again, primarily geared towards that commercial big box, but technically, if you're reading the code by the letter of the law, this would apply. So the applicant would like the elevations as shown. Here is what the building would look like on the north side facing Broadway. And of course, we can always refer back to these as necessary. This is the west elevation. This would be the main customer entrance. You can see the building has, it's a black wood veneer over a pre-manufactured building. And then there would be a metal standing seam roof on top. Again, this is looking at the south side of the building towards the farmland. And then here is the east side of the building going out towards the Allstate insurance property. This is where the loading dock would be located. So the second variance would be to allow no entrance on street frontage. If you recall that north elevation, there's technically not a front door there. So the zoning ordinance says in terms of entrances that all facades that abut a street, a public or private, shall feature at least one customer entrance. Applicant would like the elevations as shown. The third variance would be to allow the primary color of the building being black. The zoning ordinance says in regards to exterior colors that exterior facade wall colors shall be low reflectance and subtle tones. The use of high intensity primary metallic black or fluorescent colors shall be prohibited. So the applicant would like the elevations as shown. Fourth variance has to do with building detail features. The ordinance says that the facades shall include a repeating pattern that incorporates no less than 3 of the elements below. And one of those elements shall repeat horizontally. All the elements shall repeat at intervals of no more than 100 feet, either horizontally or vertically. There should be a color change, a texture change, material module change, and an architectural change. And this is a pretty common requirement that you'll see not only in our code, but really in other codes, other jurisdictions. Again, it is really primarily geared towards commercial retail development, but the code would still technically apply to this type of development because of its location. The fifth variance would be pertaining to a type 3 buffer yard that is required on the east, the west, and the south side. And he would like, again, the elevations as shown on the site plan and the site plan as shown. So here's what you would typically have to do. Because the zoning on this property is IL, it's technically a higher intensity zoning than the CN zoning that's on both sides and the R 1.0 zoning that's on the south side. So if he were to meet the letter of the law, what he'd have to do is put in a 25-foot wide buffer yard in addition to the setbacks. Then he'd have to put in a mound, trees, shrubs, and a fence. So it's a pretty comprehensive set of regulations. It is a carryover from the county, and it certainly, I'm glad we have it. It has its place in a lot of developments. And then lastly, the sixth variance would involve allowing an east side setback of 23 feet. This is something that I caught doing the plan check on the resubmittal. It technically requires a 25-foot setback on the east side, and they would like the site plan as shown. So again, I'm not seeing any particular issue with that. And you can see here, if we zoom in, when you add up some of these dimensions, it comes to 23 feet. In terms of remonstrance for the special exception, the variances, I have not received any opposition letters, emails, or phone calls on it. So again, back to the decision criteria, this is for variances, that the general welfare, that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, the safety, the morals, and the general welfare of the community. I would say that yes, they've met that. The items mostly concern architectural and aesthetic issues. So while important, they don't rise to being in conflict with that first provision. Second one is adjacent property, that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. I'd say yes, they've met this test, that varying the architectural standards in this particular case while still allowing a high quality building structure, architecture, will not affect adjacent properties in a negative way. And then lastly, for development standards variance, practical difficulty, that the strict application of the terms of this chapter will result in a practical difficulty in the use of the property. I'd say yes, that's been met. The code is written with very specific standards, and especially pertaining to architecture. And that, of course, ensures that buildings will be designed to a high standard, but we do need to have some flexibility for a unique building for a unique land use. So my opinion on these variances is that you approve them. I don't see a need to affix any particular conditions on those either. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address those. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Any of our BZA members have questions for Adam? Okay, I do believe that we have representatives from the petitioner on the line today. Either Mr. Dixon or Mr. Presley, would you like to offer additional comments this evening?
I think Adam did an awesome job of covering it, and I don't really see anything that varies from what he said.
Got it. Any of our BZA members have questions for Mr. Presley or Mr. Dixon?
Yeah, I just have one really quick one. One of the variances was about the developmental standard. One of those variances had to do with the tree line berm, trying to not do that. Will there be any greenery along there at all? Or is it just we're doing away with the with the required 25-foot, I think, buffer? I don't have that up in front of me, so I don't remember.
Yes, that is a good question. So they will be providing some landscaping, I believe. Unfortunately, I don't have the plan right in front of me.
Yeah,
Maybe Ken can comment on that. There's definitely, it's heavily landscaped out in front to screen the parking area. And it is more basic through the remainder of the property, but maybe Ken can touch on that.
I believe, we're going to put as much landscaping as we can, and I think that fed into the 23 versus the 25. And the reason we was doing that is to obtain a little more parking. You know, that there's a future hope of some growth, and at that point, it'd be nice that the parking was already there, is what led into that. I'm going to buffer that berm as much as I possibly can, simply because it'll block the other barn that's sitting next to me.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we do have time in our agenda to have anybody who is participating in this evening's Zoom to either ask questions, submit objections, or have what we otherwise call a remonstrance. Anybody on the line like to participate in that part of the agenda? Okay, so I can show that we do not have any. We also have time for government officials to make any comments. Any government officials like to make comments or ask any questions? Okay, record show that no questions at all. So we can now head back to the BZA members and either entertain a motion or a series of motions, or we can have any other additional questions prior to that. So let me, while the BZA members think of any final questions you might want to ask, Brad or Adam, can you let us know, is this something we would handle in aggregate, or would you like us to handle this question by question, or you know, or does it need to be special exceptions and variances? What's the preferred method for us tonight?
What I would suggest is voting on the special exception first. And then if you wanted to vote for all the variances as one group, secondly, you could do that. If for some reason, maybe there's one variance you don't feel comfortable with or you want to discuss, and you could break those variances out. But if people are in agreement, then you can just do them in one package.
I agree with what Adam
Got
said.
it. So Adam, can you show for us first? Oh, thanks, Brad. Could you show us first the special exception and just put it back up on us? I think that's very helpful when we're making motions to see the content. So if you wouldn't mind putting that back up for us. And so while Adam's bringing that up, any final clarifications or questions from our BZA members? No? Okay, good. Okay, and this is the decision-making criteria for the special exception. There we go. Okay. So the first item that we would consider at the BZA is a motion pertaining to the special exception. Any BZA members like to take that on?
Well, I can try on this one because I'm a little confused as to the list that's on the ballot, which has like 7 items. So if I make this motion, somebody may have to correct me if I don't have the correct verbiage in it. So I make a motion to approve the special exceptions on case number 02 SE 2020, located at 738 West Broadway Street for the Moondrop Distillery, as presented.
Okay. Thanks, Amanda. We have a motion for approval on the special exception. Is there a second?
I second.
Thanks, Earl. Brad, is that substantially in line with your legal recommendations for the content? Let's just get that out before we. Does that sound okay to you?
Yes.
Good. All right. So let's have any discussion on the special exception motion. Any discussion or questions or comments by our BZA members? All right, call for a vote. All those BZA members in favor of the motion to approve the special exception, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay, Adam, the recommendation from Adam and Brad is that we can handle these variances in aggregate, or if need be, we can handle some of them in aggregate and some of them not. And so the best way to
Yeah, I
keep
would
them
just keep
separate.
it simple. If you want to handle if you want to handle them all in aggregate, I think that would keep it clean and easy. But if for some reason
Okay.
people don't feel that way, then you could break them out.
Okay.
Could you put those up on the screen, Adam? I think there were 5 of them.
Yes.
All right, so we're dealing with windows, elevations,
Windows, entrance,
frontage, color,
Color.
building detail, which is a little bit of an aggregate in itself, but detail.
And yard buffer.
Buffer. And then I think there's one more. Was the last one on setback, or did we setback? Okay. So let's go ahead and give it a shot on all 6, and we'll kind of find out next steps on discussion. So any motions for the aggregated variance requests?
Anybody want to do it? Because if not, I will.
You're doing good.
Go right ahead.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I make a motion to approve the developmental standard variances items 1 through 6 for case number 02 SE 2020. Oh, no, this was the variance, correct? I may need to restate that. Which one am I looking at?
It would be that variance case number.
Okay, let me start over then. I make a motion to approve the development standard variances items 1 through 6 on case number 04 VAR 2020, located at 738 West Broadway for the Moondrops Distillery, as presented by staff.
Very good. Thank you, Amanda. Then a motion for approval of the 6 variance requests. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Is that Rick?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions on any one or at the aggregate for our BZA members? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and go to vote. There's a motion for approval. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstain? Okay, so the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Presley and Mr. Dixon, for joining us for that portion. Adam, next on the agenda. Thank you.
I believe that's it.
Okay.
There's something I'm missing.
Any other members have additional? Yeah. Okay, got it. Any other agenda items from our BZA members? Okay. We do need a motion to adjourn officially and a reminder to sign all your paperwork. My reminder too, but a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
A second.
Thank you, Earl. Thank you, Rick. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All right. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, if you all
Good
could just
seeing-
sign those ballots and put it in that self-addressed or the stamped envelope that I sent, then we'll get those back in the mail. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.